Here's my thoughts on the Gatekeeper. Basically, what I like and what I don't like. You may have a different opinion, but this is mine. So, as I was building, I had a bit of issues with the instructions. Some of the parts orientation were off. They were a bit hard to read. Once you started building, then you got an idea how they wanted stuff to do, but visually speaking, it's not an obvious uh, build right from the get go. Once you get through the first few steps, it seems to get a bit easier. I don't know if it's because you understand more about how they're doing things, or it's just smaller parts and bits and pieces, so it's a bit easier to get to it, I guess. Other parts of the manual could have used a little bit more explanation as to what they wanted you to do, but all in all, you can get through it. I've seen much worse manuals, and better, of course. I know I said I wouldn't modify anything or run it basically as it was and then see what I would do, but I couldn't help myself. I made some changes because I wanted to do other things like install an engine bay in the front. So I moved the ESC in the back, and I designed and printed a support for that. And I also redesigned the servo mount. So the instructions. I had an issue where if you look at this part here, it looks like it's facing one way and the chassis is like twisted the other way, and it's a visual thing, but it's really seems to be weird on the eyes, in my book anyways. I don't like the fact that this moves back and forth. It doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but in a supposedly high end kit, things like this shouldn't happen. The shock mounting system, well, the upper shock mounting systems, is a plate, a threaded plate behind the shock, and a little piece of plastic in front, kind of sandwiched together. I don't know why. I really have no idea why they wanted to do that this way. It just seems complicated for no reason. On the drive shafts, both front and rear, on the parts that connect to the transmission, if I pull this screw out and slide this out of the axle, there's a good chance this whole thing is going to fall apart. This piece, this plastic cover that holds the yoke pin in, is only held on by this screw. So once I pull this screw off and pull this out, there's a good chance it'll fall out, the pin will fall out, and the whole thing will fall apart. So that I really have a problem with. It really was a pain in the butt. The other end is not quite made the same, because it actually, the way it's made is it actually take the screw out and I pull this off, it stays on because it actually snaps in. If you've seen some of my other videos, namely one for a TT01, I get rid of any and all play that is on the car, and this does not work for me. I have a problem with things that bounce around and are loose like this. So basically what's going to happen is I'm probably going to put an O-ring right under here, and that'll take care of the problem. So now let's go over what I do like. The shocks seem very smooth. The transmission basically has a built-in setup for overdrive. Right now it's set up for an overdrive up front, and it comes with some extra gears where you can increase that overdrive level, or you can just buy another set of gears and you could actually make it even. Now, if you wanted to set up the overdrive on the rear instead of the front, you remove the transmission, flip it over, bolt it back in, and you basically have overdrive on the rear. The axles seem to be quite solid. The cover here actually snapped on quite nicely when I put it on. It was very nice and snug. The bearings, again, I haven't used it yet, so I don't know, but they don't have seem to have a lot of play in them. All the plastic parts fit very snugly. There's no play in here at all. When you put the screws in, there's another thing for all the plastic that's on this kit. When you put the screws in, they actually bite really well into the plastic, so that's pretty cool. Rear sway bar kit. Now that is actually very well done. So initially, the front servo was on this bracket installed here. So the servo was there. There was a cover on this, and the ESC was on here. So basically the servo and the ESC were both here. I basically redesigned a bracket for the servo. It puts the steering arm at the same level as it was before. The plans ask you to install the chassis Panhard mount in the middle here, because there's three parts where you can mount it, and they ask you to put it here. Now, in the original setup, that caused the Panhard and the steering link to be really uneven. So I put it down to the next level, so basically the lowest one, and that also caused an issue where the Panhard was touching the top of the diff here. So I installed a basically angled ball link, and that pretty much took care of that. You can see the steering link, which is also different because I needed a shorter one, because the old servo position was a bit farther out over here. You can see the steering arm is pretty much parallel to the Panhard arm. So as I mentioned before, I put the servo in the back. It's not really taped, it's not really set in yet. But you can see underneath the plate that I made. This doesn't hinder anything. Everything comes pretty close, but it's really, it's like exact. And where I put it, if I put the body on, it doesn't even show. There you go. I mean, you can see the wires, but that's not a big deal. So doing that, lowering the servo, will basically allow me to put a scale engine in the front. So I'm going to finish the electronics, put the wheels and tires together, throw those on, and take it for a test run. Hopefully it goes as well as I think it will. So I'll catch you guys later.